Shaun, just noticing that 7 players who started off the season with you are now at HK. What is the reasoning behind helping out one of your fiercest local rivals? Yeah, fair question, that one. I don't know if they're going to catch us up domestically. We are a lot better than all these useless teams in Iceland, but if they can be good enough to cause a few upsets in UEFA competitions, qualifying wise, it's for the greater good. So we're doing this for the greater good, and hopefully HK can actually win a few games in European qualifying this season, as well as all the other Icelandic teams, and we finally get some decent help. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 107 of Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up in today's episode we have a top of the table clash domestically against Knatts KR, and while that is going on we have some other Icelandic teams taking part in the second qualifying round of European competition. To go alongside that we have a bit of a recap domestically of what's happened since the end of last week, the World Cup as well. The transfer window is currently open and ending at the end of today's episode, so we've got a bit of a recap on that as well, and we will do our squad update to let you guys know what the squad does look like going into the start of European qualification in tomorrow's episode. So it could be a big one, this one. If you are looking forward to it, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. So as you would have been able to tell by that little blurb there, we've got a fair bit to cover off before we do get into this game coming up, top of the table clash against Knatts KR in the league. How we did get into this situation off the back of the end of last week, which if you did miss, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. But we have continued to play quite a few domestic games off the back of taking on Breidablik and doing our end of European season roundup at the end of last week, but we have continued to perform very well domestically. There you can see that Breidablik fixture right near the top there of our schedule. Off the back of that 3-0 win against Fylkir before we did head into a little bit of a break going into the World Cup. Off the back of that we played a few Mulcabickering games. We nearly got caught out in the second one of those because I wasn't aware that that was going to be so tightly packed together, so we had a few tired players for the second of those ties in the Mulcabickering against Reykjavik, but thankfully we got through both of those, scoring 5 goals in both games, only conceding the 2 against Reykjavik in the third round. In our most recent game leading into this top of the table clash, we did defeat Breidablik again 4-2 to make our way through to the fourth round. It wasn't until early July that we got some of those players back from the World Cup. We'll get into that shortly when we have a quick rundown of that tournament, but we have been in pretty good form so far domestically. 6-0 win there against Hafnarfjordur, 3-0 away at Akranes, 5-1 against the usual Knatts team, and then another win there over Reykjavik in the league. That was by 4 goals to 0. So we are yet to lose a game domestically so far this season through to the quarterfinals of the Mulcabicker, and that's going to be coming up in between the games in tomorrow's episode, where we do start off Champions League qualifying in the third qualifying round yet again there. We are going to be taking on Knatts KR, but in terms of the league situation going into this game, this one coming up today, top of the table clash, both us and Knatts KR tied at the top on 27 points, albeit we have played 2 less games, so we are still in a pretty strong position to win here, and we should be in a good position to make sure that we can lift the league title yet again. But it's a big game coming up for us today, and try and get a little bit of a march on the teams below us before we do get into Champions League qualifying in tomorrow's episode. And while on the subject of some of the other Icelandic teams who are just below us on the table, also in today's episode, the second qualifying round of those UEFA competitions is going to take place in around this game against Knatts KR and the end of the transfer window that we are currently in. So first off, we're going to make our way over to the Champions League. HK are in the second qualifying round of the league path on this side of the draw, and you can see they take on Göztepe of Turkey. I'm quite hopeful they'll do quite well in this one, especially when you see all the additions that we have let go to HK from our squad here at Völsungur. I'm very hopeful HK can give us a good hand in European football this upcoming season. But Göztepe, a team who are currently 11th on the Super League table in Turkey, so hopefully HK can do a decent job across those 2 legs and might do enough to make sure that they will, at the very least, get themselves a spot in the group stages of a European competition this season. They just need to win one tie to make sure they will guarantee themselves a spot in the group stages of one of the UEFA competitions. But it's not a bad draw for those guys, I think, compared to what they did have in European qualifying last season. And then we make our way down a bit further to the Conference League, and you will see here in the second qualifying round of this, if we make our way down a little bit and try and find them, because they are somewhere in amongst all these teams, and right down there near the bottom will be just above my head, Keflavik. They take on Vitesse. That looks like a little bit of a tougher task for those guys, but I'm certainly hopeful HK are going to give us a decent hand in terms of European qualifying this season and could help us out with a few coefficient points on the table, and it could be a year where we do make some decent improvement on that table. But in that most recent spell of games that we did play since the end of last week, while that was going on, we did have a World Cup. A quick overview of what did happen at the World Cup for the fourth time in a row in the Save Universe. It was won by the French team. They did beat Germany 2-0 in the final, Sweden defeating Uruguay in the third place playoff. If we have a look at that game, that is where one of our players made the most mark. That was Gaetano de Prisco. He's currently a backup centre-back for us here at Völsungur. He started the majority of games for Uruguay at this World Cup. They did end up finishing fourth in the World Cup, so he was there for the entire time with them having to play in that third place playoff. But that's a good effort there by Gaetano de Prisco for the Uruguay team. Started a majority of their games, so good work there for one of our backup centre-backs. We go back a little bit further, and you can see that one of the teams that Uruguay did knock out to get through to that third place playoff happened to be a team which also featured one of our players, and that was Norway. That was Husavik in goal. They lost this one on penalties, did Norway. He had a pretty good game there, did Husavik, but in the end, they missed out after a 0-0 draw on penalties. One of the first penalty takers there for Norway did not get the job done, so Norway, they bowed out in the second round of the knockouts of the World Cup. And for our other players, I believe it was the likes of Nathaniel Sitole, who was part of the South African team. We also had Basaroge with Senegal, and there might have been one other as well, but those teams failed to get out of their group. Just having a look down there for South Africa and Senegal in particular. South Africa failed to get any points in a group with both Argentina and Austria, and we make our way down a little bit further. Both Turkey and Canada both taking wins off Senegal in Group M, so not very good times for some of our players there, but a few did make their way into the later stages of that World Cup. In particular, Gaetano de Prisco finishing fourth with Uruguay in that past World Cup, which France did win, as I said earlier, for the fourth time in a row in this save. So next things before we do get into this game in today's episode, the transfer window is back open for the second time this year, and we have done a little bit of business heading into the last week of this transfer window, the last one before things are locked in for this upcoming European season. This past transfer window did open up at the start of July, so that is the date that you are looking up from. For this current window, we will start off on the outside. As you can see, we have loaned out a lot of players. Ozzy Robinson goes to Valerekiewicz for the rest of the season, does the English central midfielder. Hopefully, he might join them off the back of that loan when his contract here at the club does expire with only that 3-star potential. Miguel Monroy also goes to HK on loan, so HK now have quite a few players. They have 7 of our players they've either purchased off us or have on loan who were here at the club at the start of this season. We have loaned out Miguel Monroy to those guys, 2-star current ability, 3.5-star potential for the Spanish left winger. We make our way up a little bit further. Anthony Perez was a player whose contract was going to expire at the end of the season. Teams like Napoli were looking at putting bids in for this guy to join at the end of contract. So what we did was just offer him out to some Icelandic clubs on a free before. That could be the case, and HK got that over the line. So Anthony Perez is another one of our ex-left backs who will be at HK on a permanent deal. This one, 2-star current ability, 3-star, maybe 3.5-star potential. We had a lot of players here who are higher rated than that, so we felt like we could let the Spanish 22-year-old go out to HK. And then a few more loans. Charlie Shaw has gone to Sunderland in the UK. He's quite a promising midfielder, so we'll give him some experience in the Championship. Over in England, some more permanent deals though that we have done, just getting rid of some players who weren't going to get a lot of game time here with the additions that we have made here at the club, and some decent offers did come in for those guys, so we let them go. The first of those is Rosario Renzi. With the addition last season of Basaroge, he had dropped down to being our third choice defensive midfielder. Had a decent offer in for him from Hellas Verona of £1.1 million. It does include a 30% of next sale clause in that though, so he could still get a bit more out of that transfer. You can see his value has shot up now that he has gone back to Italy to join the Serie A. He was a pretty good backup defensive midfielder for us, was Rosario Renzi, but as I said, we have some good depth in that area now with both Basaroge and of course Galtason, the homegrown nation player who we can't really afford to get rid of. So when the offer did come in for Rosario Renzi, we decided to take it. We bought him for £1.5 million a few seasons ago off Fiorentina, so we make a slight loss on that deal, but with that 30% of next sale clause in there, we might still be able to make a profit on that transfer with that value he does currently have there at Hellas Verona. Good player for us, but as I said, in the end just got usurped by a few players here at the club, and then we tidied up some players who didn't quite develop as we wanted to in the right back spot here at the club. The first of those was Milos Petrovic. We sold him for £950,000. You'll notice when we get through the squad update as well, the values of our players have shot up quite a bit since we did do that end of European season roundup at the end of last week. This is already 2 deals that outdo our previous best sale here at the club in Sergio Cadena, but he goes back to Serbia to join Radniki Nistia. Does Milos Petrovic. Just had that 1.5-star current ability, 3-star potential. We invested a lot of time into this guy, but he never really developed, so we thought we'd cash in on him while we could with the 21-year-old. A big loss for us there, £3.2 million we spent on him a few seasons ago, only getting back £950,000, but yet again, there is a percentage of next sale clause in that deal of about 40%, so he could get a bit more back off that deal. He's already got a goal at his new club since leaving us here at Völsungur, but Milos Petrovic is no longer with us, and the same can be said for Adri Garrido. He has gone to Hammarby for £325,000. He's a player that we did sign on a free transfer quite a while ago, just before we sold him. You can see there, instead of being Spanish, he is now of Icelandic nationality, so he is available for the national team, but he just wasn't developing very much at all. 2-star current ability, 2.5-star potential. We let him go to Hammarby, made a bit of a profit off that deal after we did pick him up on a free transfer way back in 2023. Did not get much game time over the last few seasons, despite being homegrown at club and in nation. It did feel like this was the right time to let him go. So that covers off most of the outs since the end of last week. We have made 2 notable ins. One of them looks like a very, very big spend for a young player, and that player is Shaun. We only paid £1.5 million up front, not going to rise up to the full £5.5 million that it does say there, but he did look like a very, very promising talent here. Did the Brazilian 2.5-star current ability, has up to 5-star potential, even if that last star is a white one. He looks very, very promising. He is going to live in our under-19s for this first year and might make his way into the first team next season when someone like Fabio Mariano becomes homegrown at club and in nation. That might mean we can get rid of someone like Melcy Martins, and this guy can become another striker or wing option for us in the Champions League squad. But he looks like a very, very promising player. You can see his value there. He's shot up immediately after we did do that deal, signing him up front for £1.5 million. And if we have a look at his information, because I know someone's going to be curious about the fact that we did sign a Brazilian, with the fact that we are just juggling some foreign players here at the club at the moment. He is also part French, which is an interesting mix there, but that is the reason that we did sign him. One of the main reasons, because he does count as a EU player, not a foreign player. So that did look like a good deal for a promising young one there in Shaun. And then we tried again to get a deal across the line like we did last season with Basaroge. Didn't quite let this one finish scouting, and there was a bit of interest from French clubs like Nice. So I thought we'd better go in for this guy, and that is Brahima Makalau out of the Stella Club in the Ivory Coast. He's not quite as promising as Basaroge was, but still decent. 2-star current ability, 4-star potential. I was hoping it would be a little bit higher than that with some of those green attributes that he does have, but we only spent £35,000 on this guy. You can see his value there now that he has joined us, albeit we have loaned him straight back out to Stella Club in the Ivory Coast. He could be a player who does become homegrown club in the future or nation, but nonetheless, even if he doesn't play too much for us, he is a player who hopefully, at the very least, we can make a nice profit off with us only having signed him for £35,000 out of the Ivory Coast after playing quite a few games for those guys in the early stages of his career. As I said, loaned him straight back out to the club that we did buy him from in the Ivory Coast. Still 1 week left in the transfer window, but don't think we're going to do too much more in that week unless we do find some youngsters that we can sign. So with that in mind, we can do our squad run through for the upcoming season. This is going to be the squad that we do start with in Champions League games. We're going to have a run through of the squad and also a little bit of a look at the players in the backup squad. Our starting goalkeeper yet again is going to be Peter Husavik, currently wanted by Nice in League 1. Hopefully we can keep hold of this guy. 3.5-star current ability and potential. You can see progress-wise he has improved since he did join the club here last season. He's got a few arrows trending up in the right direction. I will say we are trying some of Zealand's training methods from his most recent video on the subject, and it does seem to be working quite nicely in terms of getting the attributes up a little bit more than it was in the past. A fair play to Zealand for that video. But Peter Husavik is going to be our starting goalkeeper, the 25-year-old Norwegian who is recently back from the World Cup. In the back line, it's pretty similar to what we had last season. John Matthews will start for us at right back. Yet again, a player who is just trending up in the right way ability-wise since joining the club. 3-star current ability, 3.5-star potential for the Irish right back. His arrows not trending quite in the direction that we do want, but he had a good solid season for us last season, averaging a 7.48. Hopefully he can keep that up in this Champions League, and overall he averaged a 7.32 in all competitions. On the left-hand side, we do still have Alejandro Meza as our first choice left back. He's a player ability-wise who has actually decreased since last season. That is not ideal, but still, I just can't find a left back who's actually better than him. This is going to be a big season for this guy. If he does not impress us, we might have to let him go. 2.5-star current ability, 3-star potential, but you look at his attributes, he should be a much higher rated player than that, especially with what we can find in the transfer market for left backs. Didn't have the greatest season last season. If we go and have a look at the career stats, he averaged a 7.05 overall, so it's actually not as bad as I did think, but it is a position that I do feel like we could certainly get a bit more out of. Hopefully he has a good season for us there, does Alejandro Meza. At centre-back, Thiago Polo keeps his spot at the back. He was great for us aerially last season, still improving progress-wise. 3.5-star current ability and potential for a player who has recently been right on the verge of joining the Portuguese national team. So he is certainly a player we do need to keep in the first team. A great option for us there at centre-back, and to go alongside him is one of our new signings from last week in Elias Anderson. Hasn't spent too much time at the club, so not much to note there progress-wise, or since he did join the club last week, but he is a very promising young Danish centre-back there. Is Elias Anderson through to the midfield. This is an area we have certainly changed over the pre-season since we got knocked out of European football at the start of last week. In the past European season, in the DM role comes Basaroge. He was our bargain signing from last season. Progress-wise, he is making a lot of it. His ability tends to fluctuate quite frequently between 3-star and 4-star current ability. He still has that 5-star potential. He should do a wonderful job for us in that defensive midfield role, being 1.9 meters tall, very dangerous aerially. He could be our long-term defensive midfield option here. At Völsungur, his value is shot up quite considerably as well, considering we only spent around £70,000 on this guy about this time last season. That is looking like an absolute bargain, and hopefully he can nail down that DM spot here in our first rotation. Then two of our newer signings alongside him, so we won't spend too long on these guys because they did only join the club last week. Karel Giroux in the box-to-box midfield role, the young Czech midfielder, looks like a good upgrade there on Nicolucci Caviglia with that 3.5-star current ability and 4.5-star potential. And alongside him is Kalen Rakazan as a Mazzala on attack. We have actually changed that recently because with him having played most of his career as a striker, I did feel like he would be quite useful in that Mazzala attack role. 4-star current ability and potential. He's already improving quite nicely since joining the club, and hopefully he can do a good job there in the Mazzala role. Can the Romanian midfielder, and up front exactly the same as what we did have last season, Nicholas Zimmerman out on the right wing, a player who is progressing quite nicely in terms of the progress graph there. On the left-hand side, Frederick Larsson does keep his spot on the left wing, currently wanted by Nice. We should hopefully be able to keep hold of him. He's just keeping a steady line in the progress graph, apart from that gap that we did have there for the end of season break here in Iceland, but yet again 3.5-star current ability and potential there for the Danish left winger who can also cover out on the other side and up front. And then up front for us is our club captain in Benjamin Rubio, 24-year-old Spanish striker, 3.5-star current ability and potential for him as well in his progress line. Yet again, pretty similar to how he was tracking around about this time last season, and that is a roundup of what our starting lineup should look like for most of the games that you do see here on camera for European qualification in this upcoming season. Having a quick look at our backup 11 at the moment. Our backup goalkeeper is Tomas Diaz, the 22-year-old Uruguayan. He's just making some steady progress, but is a very solid backup option for us there. Is young Tomas Diaz. Our backup right back, Ian Carlo, currently a foreigner, but is in the last stages of becoming Icelandic. That is going to be quite useful for us going into next season, should mean that the likes of Nathaniel Satole can find their way back into this second 11, 2.5-star current ability and potential there for the Brazilian soon-to-be Icelandic right back who has been at the club for quite a while now. Our backup centre-back partnership is a very, very good one. Ali Ramadan is one of those, the 4-star Congolese centre-back. That was the other player who was at the World Cup but didn't get out of the group stages. He is an exceptional backup should we need to use him, but didn't really cover himself in glory when we did bring him in for that first leg against Bayern Munich last season. And with the foreign player rule that we do have here in Iceland currently, he's better suited being down in that second 11. And to go alongside him, Gaetano de Prisco, fresh off that World Cup campaign, with Uruguay currently rated as one of our worst centre-backs here at the club, and that is saying something when he's helped the team get to 4th place in the World Cup. He is still a great option as a 4th choice centre-back for us. There is the 23-year-old Uruguayan who is also part Italian. And our backup left back, this could be a very interesting position for us this upcoming season. Andy Harwood, recently signed, of course, out of Sweden, 3-star current ability, 3.5-star potential. Not much change there since we did sign him late last week, but he is a player who, if Alejandro Meza does not perform well, could find himself in that first team sooner rather than later. Our backup midfielders, Brynjar Galtason as the DM, especially off the back of that sale of Rosario Renzi being homegrown in nation. We could not afford to let this guy go. He is a very, very solid option for us in that halfback role, despite only having 2.5-star current ability and potential alongside him. It's a little bit of the old firm in this backup team with Nicolosi Caviglia now down in that one. Still a very, very capable player for us is the Italian, 30 years old, but we are keeping him because just like Ian Carlo, he is not too far away from becoming Icelandic as his second nationality, and maybe then he can get some international football, seeing as he hasn't been too far off getting a call up to the Italian national team over the past few seasons. And alongside him is Porstein Arnason, yet another player who is homegrown in nation, 2.5-star current ability and 3-star potential is the backup Mazzala, who can also cover right wing. Patrick Nygaard is still our backup right winger, yet another player who is homegrown in nation. He continues to be a very solid backup for us there on the right wing. Our backup left winger is Chaka Traore. He can also cover the right-hand side as well. He has been in some really good form to start off the domestic season. Has the Ivorian 25-year-old 3.5-star current ability, 4-star potential, still on the improve as well. So he is an exceptional backup option for us here at Völsungur. And to round out the players that you probably need to know heading into this upcoming European season, Fabio Mariano, our backup striker. He is putting some good pressure on Benjamin Rubio. He made his way into the best 11 over him here at the club last season. 3-star current ability, 4.5-star potential. A very, very good backup striker. So that is what our squad does look like going into this upcoming European season. After quite a long introduction, because we had quite a bit to cover off, I think we are finally ready for this top of the table clash. And while that does go on, we can have a look and see how the other Icelandic teams are getting on in European qualifying with HK and Keflavik, but we'll come back shortly and take on Knatts KR in a top of the table clash. And 3 minutes into this top of the table clash for our first highlight, we have put out our first choice 11, just one change there with De Prisco coming in for a slightly overworked Thiago Polo at the moment, but otherwise it is our first choice 11 who should be taking place in the first leg of our third qualifying round of the Champions League in tomorrow's episode. And we do get the ball shortly off the back of that goal kick there from Knatts KR, hoping for a good performance here to just seal ourselves top of the league. Zimmerman with a shot there, nearly gets through the hands of their goalkeeper, just finds its way out for a corner, but it was nearly an early error there from the Knatts KR goalkeeper, who put this ball into the mixer. De Prisco there with a header, but straight at Stefansson's hands. And after 5 minutes, we are still locked up here at 0-0. And now we are up to the 17-minute mark for the next highlight of this game. Yet again, it is a goal kick here for Knatts KR. They look to play out from the back, but a good interception there from Alejandro Meza. We start to press forward. Zimmerman just holds the ball up there down the right-hand side, back to Busaroge, switches that to Kalen Rakasan Rubio. Long range effort goes just over the bar. So far, most of our shots coming from outside the box, and it's still 0-0 here, approaching the 20-minute mark. And that is half time in this top of the table clash. Just those two highlights in the first half, and it does remain 0-0. So not the greatest first half from us there, despite dominating things stats-wise. We'll tell the boys we're not happy, and hopefully we can get something going here in the second half and take out this top of the table clash. And we don't have to wait too long for our first highlight here in the second half. Yet again, it only happens after 3 minutes. It's a free kick here for Knatts KR. They take it short and do look to play out from the back in their black and white stripes here at their home ground. Just try and get something going here down the right-hand side. One of their players out there on an orange injury, but they do persist with him. They play a long ball there over the top, but De Prisco is going to be able to tidy things up fairly safely for us there, albeit it does actually go back to Husavik, but nonetheless we are playing out from the back and can hopefully break through nice and early here in the second half after not quite doing enough there in the first half, despite dominating things fairly comfortably stats-wise. Alejandro Meza plays that to Frederick Larsen. They just get something going here down the left-hand side, and then Kalen Rakasan is the Mazzala on attack, is able to just square that in front of goal for Nicholas Zimmerman. He will get the opening goal for us in this game. It took a little bit of time to get going there. Both Meza and Larsen holding the ball up for us here down this left-hand side. It looked like a bit of a deflected ball that from Frederick Larsen, but it found Rakasan. He squares that for Zimmerman. And early on here in the second half, we do go 1-0 up. And only a few minutes off the back of that opening goal, it's another goal kick here for Knatts KR. A lot of highlights in this game are starting off that way. They do win the header off that clearance, but we do get the ball back off it not too long off the back of that and try and get something going yet again here down our left-hand side. Rakasan plays this back to Busaroge Giroux, up to Zimmerman, the goal scorer. What can he do? Switches that out to Alejandro Meza just inside the box. It's a little bit messy here. They will play out from the back, but it's good work there from Elias Anderson to get the ball back for us there. And we are now back deep inside the opposition half. John Matthews given a ton of space here down the right-hand side. Tries to square it for Zimmerman. He puts that in the back of the net. Stefanson yet again having a bit of butterfinger work there in goal, and this time it does cost him. It wasn't exactly what I was expecting once we did switch that ball out to John Matthews. I thought this would just be squared and put in the back of the net. One of the Knatts KR defenders does get a foot in there, but Zimmerman somehow gets a shot off, finds the top left corner, and we are now 2-0 up, approaching the 55-minute mark. And right on the hour mark, we are going to make our first few substitutions of this one. Both of our wingbacks are going to come off because neither of them playing that well, and also Matthews is on a yellow card. So Carlo will come on for him and Andy Harwood to come on for Alejandro Meza. A 6.4 domestically. Not that great, but we'll see how we get on here in the last half hour, holding a 2-0 lead. And we are inside the last 20 minutes with our next highlight is a corner which Rubio puts in for Elias Anderson, comes off the post, and I think that's an own goal there from a Knatts KR player. Robert Liu tries to clear that and does a terrible job, and Knatts KR falling apart just a little bit here in the second half. Anderson, his shot comes off the crossbar. Frederick Larsen was about to try and put that in, but Liu does the work for him, and it's 3-0 with 15 minutes left. And we are inside the last 10 minutes here, and yet again it's another goal kick here for Knatts KR, but we are in a strong position to make sure that we are going to be top of the table heading into Champions League qualification in tomorrow's episode, where we do enter in the third qualifying round, and we try and get something going here down the left-hand side off of that goal kick from Knatts KR. Andy Harwood trying to get something going here for us. Frederick Larsen to Rakasan. Back to Harwood, but can't quite link up there with Benjamin Rubio. Plays that back to Gunnarsson there. Does the Knatts KR player, but Anderson yet again will win the ball for us in the air. Rakasan back to Guy. Just some good short passing as we try and make sure that we do hold on here for yet another clean sheet domestically. Benjamin Rubio back to Corral Giroux, all the way back to Duprisco, but we do start to press forward. Nice ball over the top there for Benjamin Rubio, who puts that away in the bottom left corner, and with just over 5 minutes left, we have well and truly puts Knatts KR to the sword here in the second half. 4-0 up, good patient play, and it's the Uruguayan centre-back Gaetano Duprisco who will get an assist, spots the run there of Benjamin Rubio, good finish into the left-hand side of goal, and we are going to be top of the table heading into Champions League qualification with a 4-0 lead inside the last 5 minutes. And that is full time in this top of the table clash. We do pick up a 4-0 win thanks to a second half onslaught. Lou really put Knatts KR in the toilet there with that own goal, and that really did seal things when they were 2-0 down. At that stage, in the end, it is a very comfortable win for us and make sure that we are going to be top of the table going into the start of Champions League qualifying, and we do still have some games in hand as well. So a nice position for ourselves to be, and we'll come back shortly, check in on how HK are getting on after the first leg of their second qualifying round tie in the Champions League, and then we'll see if we get anything done in the last week of the transfer window here in Iceland before getting the result from that tie. And some very good news coming from Champions League qualification at the same time as we did just play that top of the table clash in the domestic league. HK take a 3-1 lead back to their home ground for the second leg of that second qualifying round tie, as you can see on screen, being helped out by a lot of our current or former players here. HK Wunabaya picking up a double. He is currently there on loan from us here at Völsungur, and also Ben Musa picked up an assist as well as a goal. He's a player that we did sell to those guys last season, I believe. If you have a quick look through this HK squad, Ben Musa is one of our former players. Vlade Saric is currently there on loan, as is Wunabaya and Zapata in the midfield, as well as Bedrzicki at centre back, and as well as that, they've got the new addition of Antonio Parras there at left back. So that is a good solid 6 players there who have had quite a strong link with Völsungur over the past few years in that HK starting lineup, which did get that 3-1 result. And also on the bench, they've got the likes of Miguel Monroy, who picked up an assist, and they've also got Atlason, one of our former youth players, on the bench there as well. So that is quite a few Völsungur players having an impact these days at HK, and that is a great result for those guys to be taken back to their home ground. A 3-1 lead halfway through that second qualifying round tie. We'll come back shortly with the result from the second leg of that, and we'll see if we get any transfer business done in the last week of the window as well. And we are back a week later, and first things first, HK unfortunately lost the second leg of that second qualifying round tie against Göztepe, but did still go through because they lost 3-1, exactly the same result as from the away legs. That's a little bit unfortunate, would have really helped out on the coefficient, but they did still go through after penalties. Still a lot of the players that did appear for them in that first leg there in the home leg, so a bit of a disappointing collapse there from HK, but thankfully they did get through after penalties. All their first 4 penalty takers did score, and the first 3 penalty takers for Göztepe did score. Thankfully, Göztepe missed their last 2 penalties after Mikel Bedrzicki missed a chance to send through HK with his 5th penalty, but despite being a lot closer than we were anticipating off the back of that first leg, HK win that tie there against Göztepe. That means that they are guaranteed to be in the group stages of Europe in some form in this upcoming season, because even if they lose all their ties from here on out, they would still drop down into the group stages of the Conference League. And if they were in the Conference League with some of those players we have loaned out to these guys, I would predict HK to help us out quite considerably coefficient-wise down in that competition. But it is a great start to Icelandic participation in the European competitions this season, even if it did get a little bit tighter than we would have liked. HKR through to the third qualifying round of the Champions League off the back of a penalty win over Göztepe. What that means for the third qualifying round for those guys is they are going to take on Genk of Belgium. That is a much tougher tie. Will be interesting to see how they get on in that one in tomorrow's episode. And going over to the Champions path, where we are entering, and it's a bit of a blast from the past for us here. Tomorrow we are going to be taking on Bohemian of Ireland. Not too sure if I can come up with the same type of intro that I came up with the first time we played these guys in Conference League qualifying. Well, I've already done the Bohemian Rhapsody, but nonetheless, that does look like quite a good draw for us there. We bet those guys in our first season in European qualifying in this save. You would like to think with all the improvements that we have made since then, that we can do exactly the same job in this third qualifying round of the Champions League and make our way through to the playoff, where hopefully we can make the group stages of the Champions League yet again and get a good cash injection back into the club for this upcoming season. Might even boost up our transfer budget for the next season as well. But unfortunately, a little bit of bad news off the back of all that good stuff in the Champions League. We do go down to the Conference League, back to the second qualifying round for this. And unfortunately, Keflavik, as we did somewhat suspect, they got absolutely spanked by Vitesse of the Netherlands, missing out 7-1 there on aggregate. So Keflavik are out, but HK are still alive. But we do have another team entering in the third qualifying round of Conference League, and that team is Phil Keir, albeit they have got a very tough tie there. They do take on Young Boys of Switzerland. That is a team who has given us a few headaches in past Champions League qualifying and Europa League campaigns. So I dare say that Phil Keir might be in trouble in that one. And we go up to the Europa League as well, because again, we have a team entering in the third qualifying round of the league path of this one. This one does look slightly more promising because Akranes take on Ross County of Scotland. Not the sort of team you expect to be in Europa League qualifying out of Scotland, but maybe Akranes are going to be capable of tipping up those guys, even though they are currently just battling ever so slightly mid-table here in Iceland. But Ross County, not really a team you'd expect to be in European qualifying out of Scotland. So hopefully Akranes can make the most of that if they get a win. In that tie, they will also guarantee themselves group stages of European football for this upcoming season. So certainly looking at a bit of a stronger position are the Icelandic teams than they were at this time last season. Of course, last season we had two Icelandic teams meeting each other in that third qualifying round of the Europa League. So that's what the UEFA competitions do look like going into the start of our journey in tomorrow's episode, where we do take on Bohemian of Ireland. Unfortunately, we didn't end up doing anything at the end of the transfer window here in Iceland. We did actually nearly sell Alejandro Meza to Napoli for about 5.75 million, but he did not decide to go in time, which meant that we did have to cancel that deal. The player that we would have bought in place of Alejandro Meza would have been this left back out of Bordeaux in France called Kenny Boreal, 22 years old. He does look a lot more natural in the wing back role in terms of his star rating for that position. Isn't quite as good as Alejandro Meza attribute wise, but looking at his stars, probably a bit of an upgrade in that position. But nonetheless, Alejandro Meza did not decide to leave in time, which was a little bit frustrating because we did buy Alejandro Meza for around £750,000, getting around 6 million for him, including a percentage of next sale clause. Would have been quite nice, but unfortunately did not decide to join Napoli in time, so we had to tell him you cannot do that, and that meant that this deal with Kenny Boreal did fall through, and that's what we were going to use most of our leftover transfer money on as well. That meant that some deals that we were trying to line up for younger players, we had to cancel those just in case Alejandro Meza did leave for Napoli. So in the end, not the last week of the transfer window that we were after, in the end getting absolutely no business done thanks to Napoli coming in for Alejandro Meza and him taking far too long to decide whether he did want to join those guys or not. So our squad is exactly what it looked like at the start of today's episode, heading into Champions League football in tomorrow's episode, albeit Nicolussi Caviglia has picked up some pulled knee ligaments. He's going to be missing from that first qualifying round there against Bohemian. That means that Maurizio Goffi does step into the squad for him for tomorrow's episode. But that will do it for this big one. I think I've been talking for close to an hour now, so hopefully this episode isn't too long. But if you did enjoy that big one with the squad update, a bit of a recap of what's been happening in games since the end of last week, and a win in that top of the table clash, as well as some good early form there from HK in the Champions League qualifiers, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. Tomorrow we will come back and get straight into Champions League qualifying against Bohemian. It's a tie we absolutely should be winning, a very interesting matchup in the league before then, as well as we do take on HK, albeit all those players who are currently there on loan from us aren't going to be available for them in that tie, so it might be a little bit easier, that one, than it would appear off the back of that Champions League form from HK. And we've also got a tie in the Malka Bickerin against Knatts KR in between those games against Bohemian as well. So 4 big games coming up in tomorrow's episode, including those Champions League qualifiers, and hopefully HK can continue doing well on the league path side of the Champions League qualifying as well. But until then, for that tie against Bohemian, in tomorrow's episode. Thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.